In recent days, Venezuela has once again returned to the center of global headlines and political analysis. A country that has long moved beyond the single-dimensional crisis is now caught in a complex, multi-layered, and deeply entrenched one. This is no longer merely a political crisis, nor solely an economic or humanitarian one. It is a convergence of all these dimensions, intertwined and mutually reinforcing. The central question remains: where is Venezuela heading? And has this prolonged crisis reached the brink of explosion, or is it still unfolding through gradual erosion? To answer this, we must first step back and examine the broader picture. At the structural level, Venezuela's economy lies at the heart of the crisis. Despite possessing the world's largest proven oil reserves, this very advantage has, over time, turned into a structural vulnerability. The country's economy remains heavily oil-dependent, making it extremely susceptible to global price fluctuations, internal mismanagement, and external pressure. Declining oil production, deteriorating infrastructure, the loss of skilled human capital, chronic inflation, and the collapse of the national currency have collectively pushed large segments of society into poverty and economic insecurity. While international sanctions have undoubtedly intensified these pressures, many analysts emphasize that sanctions are not the root cause of Venezuela's crisis. Rather, they have accelerated and amplified underlying structural failures that were already present. Parallel to the economic breakdown, Venezuela faces a prolonged political crisis marked by eroding legitimacy. Contested elections, restricted political space, recurring protests, and security-oriented responses have steadily weakened public trust in formal institutions. From the perspective of many political analysts, Venezuela's situation is not defined by sudden upheaval, but by long-term institutional fatigue, a condition in which neither decisive transformation nor sustainable stability emerges. The result is a state of permanent limbo, leaving society suspended between endurance and exhaustion. One of the most visible consequences of this prolonged instability has been the mass migration of Venezuelan citizens. Over the past years, millions have left the country, reshaping Venezuela's social fabric while placing growing pressure on neighboring states and regions beyond Latin America. According to international observers, Venezuela's humanitarian crisis, both in scale and duration, now stands among the most severe of the modern era. It is a crisis in which daily survival, rather than political ideology or geopolitical alignment, defines the lived reality of ordinary people. Against this backdrop, analysts commonly outline several potential scenarios for Venezuela's future. The first scenario envisions a gradual and negotiated transition. In this outlook, sustained internal pressure, economic exhaustion, public demand for change, and calibrated international engagement slowly push political actors toward limited compromise. This would not be a revolutionary rupture, but rather incremental reforms, reduced tensions, partial political openings, and cautious economic recovery. Yet, most experts caution that such a path requires political will, credible guarantees, and internal trust building, conditions that remain fragile and incomplete. The second, and widely regarded as the most likely short-term scenario, is the continuation of a chronic gray zone crisis. Under this model, Venezuela avoids total collapse, but also fails to achieve meaningful reform. The governing structure remains intact, sanctions are only partially eased, the economy stabilizes at a low level, and society adapts to prolonged hardship. This scenario is not explosive, but erosive, a slow depletion of institutional capacity, social cohesion, and long-term potential. A third scenario considers the possibility of escalating instability. In this case, a convergence of severe economic deterioration, widespread social unrest, fractures within power structures, and intensified external pressure could push the country toward deeper turmoil. Although many analysts see this outcome less probable, they caution that in highly stressed systems, unexpected triggers can rapidly alter trajectories. The fourth scenario, often discussed but rarely endorsed, centers on external intervention and imposed change. Historical experience, however, suggests that externally driven solutions rarely produce sustainable stability. On the contrary, such interventions often prolong conflict, deepen divisions, and increase long-term costs. This leads to the critical question: is Venezuela approaching a breaking point? The prevailing assessment among analysts is nuanced. Venezuela has entered a decisive and sensitive phase, yet clear indicators of an imminent nationwide explosion remain limited. What is visible instead is a steady accumulation of pressure, economic, social, and political, pressures that may eventually reshape the country's path, but not necessarily through sudden collapse. In other words, Venezuela today appears to be moving through gradual deterioration rather than abrupt implosion. In conclusion, Venezuela stands at a crossroads where certainty remains elusive. It is neither on the verge of immediate collapse nor on a clear path to recovery. The country's future will largely depend on the interaction of three key forces: domestic social pressure, political decision-making at the center of power, and the evolving posture of international actors. What is undeniable is that Venezuela's crisis is no longer just a national story. It has become a case study in how politics, economics, sanctions, ideology, and human lives intersect in the modern world. And perhaps the most important reality is this: Venezuela remains in crisis, but its future is not yet sealed. The direction it ultimately takes will be shaped by decisions that, as of now, have yet to be made.